everybody to the Black Artist Seminar provided by BlkArthouse. My name is Tatiana Rice, and I am the founder of this organization. As most of you know, BlkArthouse is dedicated to Black artists and empowering Black creativity. So we do these series as a ways to empower our Black artists and make sure that you're moving forward in your careers in a meaningful way. So today we have three very special guests. I will let each of them introduce themselves, but generally they're all connected with BlkArthouse and people that I trust very deeply. So I'm really excited to have them all here. So first and foremost, oops, woo, I have not used a screen like this before for a while. We will let the panelists introduce themselves. So we can kind of go in the order that we see here. So we'll start with Dr. Gillespie. You want to just give a quick overview of yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Valerie Gillespie. I've been in the education world for over 20 years now. I'm the Director of Fine Arts at the Winston School in Dallas. I'm also the owner of Pencil and Paper Gallery in Dallas as well for about 3 years now. We opened our door 3 years ago in the summer. And so we are still here along, hanging in there. So I'm glad. Thank you, Tati, for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And Claudia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Watts. I'm the Director of Culture at Eaton DC, which is kind of like a radical hospitality concept. And so we have a permanent collection, and we also do shows throughout the year and other cultural and arts-based programming. And I'm also the owner of Arts Activated, where I do freelance writing and curatorial services and arts-based project management.
Thank you, Claudia. And last but not least, Ms. Jolie, who a lot of you already know, but I'll let her introduce herself again.
Thank you. Again, Miss Jolie, I am the creative director of BlkArthouse. I got a chance to join BlkArthouse this year and have not stopped since. A large part of our role is working very closely with our founder, Tatiana, and the artists, and creating creative content around the work that they do every day and how they show up in our BlkArthouse space. I'm also coined myself as a cultural journalist, working to tell the stories of our Black artists. So I work with and do interviews with our Black artists to tell their story in a very creative and cool way. And I really, really enjoy doing it. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, like I said, thank you all again so much for being here. So the reason that we're all here is because we want to know how to participate in an exhibition. So BlkArthouse did our first in-person exhibition at the Eaton with Claudia and their whole team. It was fantastic, but it definitely highlighted the need of artists to have support and networks and understanding about how exhibitions tend to run, as well as my understanding of how exhibitions run. It's always good to have a good understanding of what each step is, and even if you do think that you understand how an exhibition runs, what you can do to be better and how to form relationships based on those opportunities that you are having. So the way that today is going to run is this is a panel discussion. So I have a couple of questions for the panel, which will probably take maybe like 20 to 30 minutes, I anticipate. And then after that, we will have an open Q&A where anybody in the audience can ask their questions to anybody. So without further ado, we'll start with our first question. This is going to be to all of the panelists. Pretty open-ended one. If any of the panelists want to add on to what somebody else said, feel free to do so, just don't cut them off. So first question is, when you're curating a show, what do you or your organization or gallery do in terms of looking for a potential artist? So like when you're going through the process of people applying or you're putting together an exhibition, what are you looking for in the artists?
If you want, I could start.
Go for it. Yeah, it's kind of
for
open.
For us, we look for artists that have artwork that just it's heavy in content. I think there's like this complete thought when you see their body of work. We also look for artists that have a body of work, a substantial amount of work to look from, so we could see that consistency and see the content of the work. And you know, sometimes we have abstract artists, right? And it's not always so easy to see that content in that kind of work. And in that case, it's the style. Is there a style that's present, or are they all over the place? Is there a consistency? So for us, when we get proposals or emails, with artwork, we're mainly looking for that consistency in, you know, a single body of work. Also, I mean, if it speaks to us, I think for me too, sometimes I just see work and my heart swoons for it, and I feel something for it. Sometimes it's as simple as that, what moves me. So.
I would say I think that's a really great start, right? What
Yeah.
moves you. I would also say for me personally, I'm always looking at like the impact. So like, why are you making this work and who is it for and what do you want like them to take from it? And then I'm also always curious about process, and not just process from the material standpoint, but also the conceptualization. So like, how did you put all of these things together? Like what was that creative process like? And so those are two big ones for me, like when I'm at Eaton. I will also say that I am a Smithsonian vet. And so if you have those types of hopes or ambitions, definitely a body of work, and also kind of the accolades. So like what type of residencies have you been in? You know, what panels, like what organizations, and also who is collecting the work. Although, you know, that's kind of a cringe thing, but in certain arenas, that's also really important.
I'm going to jump in right here. This is Miss Jolie. I would say the one thing that I notice having worked with artists is I would ask myself and ask them the question, are you ready to tell your story? I think Black art is so personal, and it leaves a lot to be imagined and hoped for and all those things. So I usually am looking at the art and going, I think they're ready to tell their story. I think this artist has a story to tell. And that's usually what triggers the, you know, asking the artist, are you ready? You know, you submitted work and you got excited, but now are you ready? Because there will be many people and many eyes, not just the company you keep, but those who we know nothing of, we don't know their story, who's looking for your story in the work. So are you ready to tell your story? It's a very vulnerable question to ask, but I think when I feel that, and I can feel the artist is ready, is when it's a great opportunity to put their story on display.
Yeah, those are great answers. I'm actually going to ask a follow-up question because now I'm curious. So you made a lot of great points about seeing their body of work, consistency, their statements that they're making with their art, and what, you know, what inspires them. What are you relying on in coming to those conclusions? Like, is it a portfolio? Is it their artist statement? What are you really looking at?
So for me, when we ask for our submissions, we do have
I told her, and you heard me tell her to call.
Oh, hi, William.
Okay.
Oh, yay, I'm so glad you're here. William actually showed in our gallery
Nice.
a few months ago. Hey, good to see you. For us, when we do artist submissions, we are asking for your artist resume, the bio, the statement, all of those things. So that comes into play. But I think for us, we've noticed that when we actually get into that art studio and we're one-on-one talking with them, and it's a verbal transaction, if you will, you learn so much more than what I feel any artist could ever show on paper or in a JPEG. For us, it's about those relationships that we have when you're talking. But the key is for that artist to get to that point, right? You do need to get to that point where you can get that gallerist in there into your studio to actually have those conversations. So in that case, it's a bomb ass, you know, resume and statement and really well shot JPEG images. I cannot stress that enough. There's one thing I think that holds back a lot of artists when they come through our doors is we can't tell what's happening if we can't see it. Actually take the time to have, you know, nice resolutions full resolutions when you submit the work. But
that's huge. Okay, that's so important,
it's so
because you can get something and you will think it is one thing and it is something
it's not
completely different.
Yes.
What's that fabric? What is happening here? And that's so important. And I think that, like, one of the biggest, I guess, gaps or disadvantages that is not being filled in the industry is that people that go through the traditional route of art school, they get that training of how to put together that portfolio, how to talk about the work, all of that. And so if you don't this is totally a workshop that you always need to have if you haven't had it, but prepping people to talk about their work so that they can get into that next phase. And the studio visits that's like one of my favorite parts, because it is the story, it is learning about them, it's seeing them in their natural element, and building that relationship over time is really it's lovely. It really is.
Yeah. There's just nothing like sitting in an artist's space surrounded by their work and hearing their words come out of their mouth. So that's why it's always tough. It's always tough to turn something down on, through email. So, oh my gosh. So I totally encourage y'all. Sometimes artists come into the spaces. They come in with their work. I love that too. I know some galleries frown upon that, but I love that. I love just that go-getter, attitude when it comes to when you're passionate about your work. That makes me excited about your work too.
Definitely. The go-getter aspect will, I remember when I first started kind of really moving in DC's art scene, and I've met a lot of different characters and just art in general, right? Because you travel, you meet all types of people. But I remember this one guy telling me he's really, really a very skilled craftsman, and he would find different ways to place his art all around the city. He would pick up odd jobs. He would he did a hair salon. He said that he would paint it if they let him put his art on the walls, or he worked with realtors to stage properties, and then he would put his art in the space. And he had that that elevator pitch about who he was and what he was doing down. And he looked at me one day and he said, "Claudia, people are going to buy the artist before they buy the artwork. So you got to have it." And I was like, and as I've moved through my career and met different artists and gone different places, it proves true. It's not the only thing, but if you are super confident and you've got it down and you can just put it out there, people will gravitate right toward that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, Claudia, everything you said. Okay. And this is so bad to say. I mean, there's been some work that's bad.
Yeah.
They're so into it.
Yes. You're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing."
Yes, I love it. Yes. Just when you can sell your work, man, that's everything. You believe in the work.
Exactly.
I wanted to jump in because I think what BlkArthouse experienced was a virtual space. So we didn't have the pleasure of meeting our artists face to face. That was very, very, very different from what I experienced, again, working with art, working with, just people in general. I'm like, wow, to not be able to see them one-on-one, how do you make that connection? And I think we just kind of opened the floodgates a little bit to how we wanted to communicate. So everything from, let's check out their Instagram because let's just see how they're functioning in a digital world, in a virtual world. How does that show up? Where is their art at? Who is talking about their art? How are they showcasing themselves? I think that was important for me to see because I was in a virtual space and I was kind of forced here. So I was like, okay, how do I make a connection with the artist, being that we are all virtual? We are talking to each other through screens. So I think that was very interesting, looking at their digital footprint and their fingerprint and how they're touching everyone else around them and how they're creating that community. So that virtual world is equally as important as the kind of one-on-one that I've noticed. So I've been taking advantage and asking artists, I would ask all our artists, take advantage of that digital footprint you're trying to make. If you don't have a website, if you don't have an Instagram page, you don't have a link tree, please get those things because how else do we see your work and where it shows up at? We can't see each other these days. It's very, very difficult. So let's do our best to create a digital footprint that you are proud of and that you want those of us who make those decisions to kind of remember you by.
That's a very great point. I especially this is not an ageist statement. If you are a younger artist and technology comes more easily to you, it's definitely something that you need to capitalize on because it really there are several artists over the pandemic whose careers exploded because they had such a strong presence. And I remember at the beginning of it, I was consulting on a project that was an open studio tour. It was 17 years in, all of these artists in like an arts, I guess, district in Maryland. And it was hundreds of them, but they were all more seasoned and they didn't have web presences at all. And we had to like essentially build them up to that and show them how to create their own point of sales, their own websites, their own virtual studio tours. And it was definitely a learning curve. You know, this pandemic pushed them into it, but now everyone is so thankful that they got there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All great points. And actually, if anybody's interested, we actually just did a seminar on entrepreneurship, which is basically how to market and sell yourself as an artist. So you can check that out. That's on our YouTube, as well as a seminar on social media marketing from an artist who is just phenomenal and a guru at it. So next question is pointed actually towards Dr. Gillespie, just telling us a little bit about breaking down the process for an exhibition or a general art show in your experience.
Yeah, so for us, it's a lengthy process, meaning our calendar gets booked out so far in advance. So right now we have shows through 2023. So what I suggest is for artists is the minute that proposal is ready, you submit it. And in that, of course, you have your bio, your resume, your artist statement, at minimum 10 JPEG high resolution images of your work, and then a statement on what you're looking for in this solo show or group show, whichever it is that you're hoping to do. But once we get those proposals and we look at things and things look good, then we contact the artist, we schedule a studio visit, we look at the work in person. And to Jolie's point, we've done a couple where a couple of artists weren't comfortable with meeting in person, so we did Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, and we looked at it that way. It's not the same, but it's still it's better than just the JPEG image. And then from there, we put together a contract, and from this contract, they sign it. There's for us, I know some galleries are 35 or 30, 70, 25 and something else. I'm horrible at math. We're 50-50. We come to an agreement and it's signed and we're good. So either that artist is creating more work for that show, or they already have that body of work and it's there and ready to go. And when their show comes up a couple of weeks before the reception, they deliver it, we hang it. And I know I'm making this sound a little bit way easier than it is,
yeah.
but there's a lot involved. Labels and statements and marketing. There's so much that goes into an exhibition. And I do want to stress that it's the gallery's job to get your name out there and to sell your work and to just make you seem like the most important artist that there is in that moment. It is our job to do that. And you want to find yourself a gallerist in a gallery that is dedicated to doing that for you. But with that being said, I also think that there's a responsibility of the artist. Show up to the reception, bring people into that gallery, even if it's not in the reception, you're showing up, right? On the off hours or whenever they're open with friends, family. I feel like it's a partnership that needs to happen between artist and gallerist when it comes to an exhibition to be successful. We've had exhibitions before where the artists aren't so active in promoting themselves, and it's worked, but I just noticed I've seen the most success in sales when both artist, gallery, gallerist, curator are all working together to just to pump it,
I mean,
yeah.
I have a follow-up question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm